The night air in Pattaya was heavy, thick with humidity, perfume, and smoke from street food stalls. Neon lights flickered above the bars, glowing pink and red, drawing men like moths to a flame. I walked slowly down Walking Street. My shirt stuck to my back. My throat burned from cheap whiskey I had swallowed too quickly. I could hear laughter echoing, sharp and hollow. It did not sound like joy. It sounded like hunger. Girls leaned against doorways. They smiled, waved, and called out. Their voices were sweet, but their eyes were sharp. Every gesture was a transaction. Every smile had a price. I was 62 years old, retired, alone. My pension had just started flowing. I told myself I deserved a new life. Warm weather, cheap beer, and a place where I would not feel invisible. That is when I saw her. She stood outside a small bar lit with a single flickering blue light. Not the flashiest bar, not the loudest, but she stood still, unlike the others. Her dress was red silk, clinging to her small frame. Her eyes did not dart around like the rest. She looked directly at me. I froze. The noise of the street seemed to dim. It was as if her gaze cut through the chaos. My heart thudded in my chest. I had not felt that in years. "Hello," she said softly, not shouting, not playful, just one word, and I walked toward her without hesitation. Inside, the bar was dim. Fans turned lazily, barely cutting the heat. The smell of beer, sweat, and cheap perfume clung to the air. A handful of men sat hunched over their drinks, staring at the stage where two girls swayed without energy. She led me to a seat. Her hand brushed mine. Warm, alive. I ordered a beer I did not want. I only wanted her to stay. Her name was Neri. She told me she was 26. Her English was soft, broken, but enough. She laughed at my jokes, even when they were not funny. Her hand stayed on my arm. Every touch sent a shock through me. I felt 20 years younger. The night blurred. Beer stacked on the table. She leaned closer with each sip. Her perfume, sweet and heavy, filled my nose. I could not remember the last time a woman looked at me like that. At the end of the night, she asked if I wanted company. The words were rehearsed. I knew that, but my chest tightened all the same. I said yes. Back at my small rented apartment, she slipped off her shoes at the door. She moved silently, like she had done this countless times. But she smiled at me in a way that felt private. Her hands were gentle, her kisses soft. I told myself this was not business. I told myself this was different. When I woke in the morning, she was still there. Most girls left before dawn, but she stayed. She made coffee in my tiny kitchen. She hummed a tune I did not know. I felt something crack open inside me. Hope. That was the beginning. Days turned into weeks. She stayed more often. Sometimes she returned to the bar, but less and less. I started giving her money. Small amounts at first. For rent. For her sick mother in the village. For her younger brother's school fees. Each request came with a soft voice and downcast eyes. And each time I gave in. I told myself it was love. I told myself I was helping her. I told myself she needed me. Then came the first shock. One night, while she showered, I picked up her phone. I do not know why. Curiosity. Insecurity. Her screen lit up with messages. Dozens of them. From men. Older men like me. Some messages were desperate. Some angry. Some begging her to come back. One message said, "I sent you 50,000 last week. Where are you?" My stomach twisted. My hands shook. I felt the walls of the room closing in. I dropped the phone just as she stepped out of the bathroom. Her wet hair clung to her shoulders. She smiled at me, a smile that had once felt real. Now it felt sharp as a blade. "Everything okay?" she asked. Her voice was soft, but I heard steel underneath. I nodded, but inside, something broke. I knew the truth, but I did not leave. I could not leave. I told myself the messages on her phone meant nothing. Maybe they were old. Maybe she had not answered them. Maybe she really chose me. But doubt crawled into my chest like a parasite. It did not leave. It whispered to me when she stepped outside to take a call. It hissed at me when she stayed out late. It gnawed at me when she turned her back at night. Still, I could not confront her. I was afraid of losing her, afraid of being alone again. And she knew it. She started asking for more. Her voice was always soft, her eyes always pleading. Money for her mother's surgery, money for her cousin's wedding, money for her village house that needed a new roof. I sent transfers I could barely afford. I told myself it was temporary. She would repay me in love, in loyalty, in a future together. One night, I took her to a seafood restaurant by the beach. The air smelled of salt and grilled prawns. The ocean stretched out black and endless under the moonlight. I looked at her across the table. Her face glowed in the lantern light. For a moment, I believed I was a young man again. I reached for her hand. "Neri," I said, my voice trembling, "I want to build a life with you." Her eyes widened. Then she smiled, slow and soft. Her fingers tightened around mine. "Yes," she whispered. "I want that too." The words pierced me like a blade of hope, but her smile did not reach her eyes. I ignored it. From that night, my spending grew. I moved into a bigger apartment. I bought her gold jewelry. I paid her rent even when she stayed with me. She told me she wanted to stop working at the bar. She wanted to open a salon, something of her own. The idea filled me with pride. I told myself I was saving her. I told myself I was a hero. She said she needed 200,000 baht to start. I withdrew from my retirement fund. The numbers on my account shrank, but my chest swelled with purpose. I imagined us cutting the ribbon together, her smiling at me with true gratitude. But the salon never opened. Weeks passed. She avoided the subject. Every time I asked, she gave me new excuses. Paperwork delays, greedy landlords, corrupt officials. Always something. The doubts returned, sharper than before. One evening, while she dressed to go out, I asked her where she was going. She said she was meeting a friend. Her tone was too quick, too defensive. I asked if it was another man. Her face changed. Her eyes flashed cold. She hissed through her teeth. "If you do not trust me, maybe I leave." My chest tightened with fear. I begged her to stay. I apologized. She let me hold her, but her eyes were elsewhere. Nights grew longer. She stayed out later. Sometimes she did not come back until dawn. Sometimes not at all. When she returned, she smelled of smoke, alcohol, and unfamiliar cologne. I tried not to notice. I told myself love required patience. But inside, my stomach turned sour. Sleep became impossible. Every sound outside the window made me sit up in panic. Every vibration of her phone sent a jolt through me. Then came the second shock. One afternoon, while she was out, I went to the bar where we first met. I told myself I wanted to see if she had truly left. The bar was dim, just as I remembered. The fans turned lazily. The smell of stale beer clung to the air. And there she was, on stage, dancing, laughing, her hand on the knee of another man. An old man, red-faced, drunk, smiling at her like she was a son. I froze at the doorway. My chest burned. The world tilted. She looked at me, only for a second. Her smile did not falter. She turned back to him like I was air. I stumbled back into the street. The neon lights blurred. The noise of the crowd roared in my ears. I felt sick. I felt hollow. I felt like a fool. That night, when she came home, I said nothing. She slipped into bed beside me, her perfume thick and foreign. I turned away. My pillow was wet before I fell asleep. I told myself I would leave her. I told myself I would stop giving her money. I told myself I was done. But when morning came, she kissed me softly. Her eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "I am sorry. Please do not leave me." And my resolve crumbled. Again, the days blurred into weeks. I gave more and more and more. Each time I promised myself it would be the last. But each time she looked at me with those pleading eyes, I opened my wallet again. I watched the numbers in my bank account shrink. At first, it did not scare me. I believed we were building something together. A salon, a future, a family maybe. But the salon never opened. The excuses never ended. And the bills began to pile up. I had underestimated how quickly money disappeared in this city. Rent, utilities, endless nights out, new clothes for her, hospital bills for her mother, school fees for her brother. Every story pulled me deeper into the pit. One night, while I counted the last of my cash, she came to me with trembling hands. Her voice shook as she told me her father was sick in the village. He needed medicine. He might die without it. I stared at the bills in my hand. I had just enough left for my rent. Without it, I would be homeless. But her tears fell on my arm. Her small body shook against me. And I handed her the money. The next day, My landlord knocked on the door. I had nothing to give him. His voice was sharp, his eyes cold. He gave me 1 week. I sat in that room after he left, staring at the cracked ceiling fan turning above me. My heart pounded in my chest. My palms were slick with sweat. I realized the truth. I was trapped, and I had done it to myself. That night, when she returned, her face was bright, her laughter light. She carried new shoes in a bag. She twirled in front of me, asking if she looked beautiful. The smell of alcohol clung to her breath. I asked about her father. She looked away, only for a second. Then she smiled. "He is better now," she said. Something inside me cracked. The words scraped against my throat like broken glass. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw her out. But when she leaned against me, when her lips brushed my neck, the anger drained away. I let her stay. My pension was gone. My savings drained. I began pulling from my retirement fund in chunks. Each withdrawal burned me with guilt, but she always had a reason. Her eyes always wet with tears. Her voice always breaking. Soon, even that was gone. The account I had built for decades was empty. I was 63, broke and ashamed. But she was not finished with me. One morning, she pressed her head against my chest, her fingers trailing over my shirt. She whispered, "I love you, but we need more. We need to buy land. We can build a house. Our future." Her words wrapped around me like a noose. I told her I had nothing left. Her eyes narrowed. Her lips pressed in. Then, after a long silence, she whispered again, "Bank loan. You can do it. Just one loan. For us." The thought sent a shiver through me. I had never borrowed. I had never lived on debt. I had spent my whole life saving carefully, planning for safety. But now I was desperate. I could not lose her. I went to the bank. The cold air inside made my skin crawl. The walls were white, the smell of disinfectant sharp. I sat across from the clerk, my hands trembling, my voice low. I signed the papers. Ink spread across the page like poison. When I left the bank, I felt a weight settle on my chest. But when I handed her the money, she kissed me with a fire I had never felt. For a moment, I believed it was worth it. The illusion did not last. Weeks passed. The house was never bought. The land was never seen. The money was gone, swallowed by her nights out, her shopping bags, her lies. I began to feel the walls closing in. Collectors started calling. My landlord demanded payment. Even my friends back home began to ask where all my money had gone. I lied to them. I lied to myself. But I could not lie to my reflection. Each morning, I stared into the mirror. The man who looked back was hollow-eyed, gray, broken. And still I stayed. Because each time I threatened to leave, she clung to me. Her tears wet my shirt. Her voice cracked with promises. "I love you. I will change. Please do not go." I believed her. Again and again. Until the night everything shattered. It was a Friday night. The air outside was thick with heat and exhaust. The street glowed with neon. I had not seen her since morning. Her phone was silent. No messages. No calls. Just silence that gnawed at me until I could no longer sit still. I left my apartment and walked toward the bar district. Each step felt heavier than the last. My shirt clung to my back. Sweat dripped down my temple. The sound of music and shouting grew louder with every block. When I reached the street, the noise struck me like a wave. Drums thumped. Girls laughed. Men shouted drunkenly. The air smelled of grilled meat, cigarettes, and spilled beer. I pushed through the crowd until I saw her. Neri, sitting with a foreigner. A man twice her age, face red from drink. Her hand was on his arm. Her head tilted close. Her smile soft and tender. The same smile she gave me. I froze in the doorway. The scene stabbed into me like a knife. The way she leaned toward him. The way her hand lingered. The way she whispered something in his ear, and he roared with laughter. I felt my stomach twist. I wanted to rush in, to drag her away, to scream at her, to demand why. But my legs refused to move. I stood there like a ghost, watching as she slipped her hand into his. Together they walked toward the back, toward the rooms upstairs. My chest tightened until I could not breathe. The world spun. The neon light smeared into streaks. The sound of laughter turned to echoes inside my skull. I stumbled back into the street. The pavement swayed beneath me. I wanted to vomit. I wanted to vanish. Back at my apartment, I sat in darkness. The fan whirred above me. My hands shook so violently I could not hold my glass of water. Tears blurred my vision. Anger surged, but it drowned quickly in despair. When she returned at dawn, her eyes were tired, her dress wrinkled. She dropped onto the bed without a word. The smell of cologne clung to her skin. Not mine, another man's. I stared at her as she slept. Her lips parted slightly, her breathing slow, peaceful, as if she had not just shattered me. I felt something dark rising in me, something bitter, something dangerous. But I swallowed it. I told myself I still needed her. Without her, I had nothing. The days after that blurred. I stopped eating. I stopped answering messages from friends. I ignored the bank calls. Every sound made me jump. Every knock at the door sent my heart racing. Debt collectors began to appear. At first, polite letters. Then calls. Then visits. Voices at the door, demanding payment. Threats wrapped in smiles. I could not sleep. I could not breathe. Neri seemed untouched by it all. She still went out at night. She still bought clothes and jewelry. She still asked for more. And I still gave. Until the day I realized I had nothing left to give. I opened my bank app one morning. The numbers glared at me. 0. Every account. Drain. My hands went cold. My vision blurred. My chest felt like a stone pressing down, crushing me. When she woke, I told her. My voice cracked, shaking. I have no more. It is gone. For the first time, her face changed. No tears. No soft words. Her eyes went flat like glass. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She did not scream. She did not comfort me. She simply stood, picked up her phone, and walked to the door. Where are you going? I asked, panic clawing at my throat. Out, she said. Her voice was cold. Out with friends. The door closed behind her. I sat in silence. The walls seemed to close in. The fan whirred above, mocking me with its endless turning. Hours passed. She never came back. The apartment was silent. Too silent. No hum of her voice. No shuffle of her feet. Only the fan turning above and the faint noise of traffic outside. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the door. I waited for her to come back. Minutes turned into hours. Hours into days. She never returned. Her clothes were gone. Her perfume bottles. Her shoes by the door. All vanished. The only thing she left behind was a half-empty bottle of lotion on the bathroom shelf. The smell clung to the room, mocking me, haunting me. I called her phone. At first it rang, then it went dead. Blocked. Cut off. Erased. I searched the bars, the streets, the places we used to go. Her face was nowhere. When I asked the other girls, they looked at me with pity. One shook her head slowly and muttered, "She gone. She find new." The words sliced into me. Gone. New. Discarded like trash. I stumbled home that night with empty pockets. My reflection in the window glass looked like a stranger. Eyes sunken. Skin gray. A man broken. The next morning came the pounding on the door. 3 men stood outside. Not police. Not friends. Debt collectors. Their shirts pressed. Their smiles thin. Their eyes cold. "You owe," one said in broken English. "Time to pay." I tried to explain. I had nothing. She had taken it all. They did not care. One of them grabbed my shoulder, hard enough to bruise. "Next week," he said, "if no pay problem." The door slammed shut behind them. My legs gave out. I slid to the floor. The sound of their footsteps echoed in the hallway long after they were gone. I had never felt fear like that. Not when I lost my job years ago. Not when I had surgery. This fear was different. It crawled under my skin. It squeezed my chest. It whispered that I would not survive this. I tried to reach out to old friends back home. I wrote messages, but each time I deleted them. What could I say? That I had thrown away my retirement for a bar girl? That I had let myself be used and drained? Shame burned hotter than hunger. Nights stretched into endless hours. I lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling. Every creak of the building made me flinch. Every shout in the street made my stomach turn. I could almost hear her laugh in the walls. I could smell her perfume in the dark, but it was only memory. I sold my watch. I sold my phone. I sold the few things of value I had left. It bought me another week. But the debt was still there, waiting, growing. The landlord came again. His face was tight, his voice impatient. "You go. No money, no stay." He wanted me gone, out on the street. I packed what little I had into a single bag. Clothes, a few old photographs, papers I could not leave behind. Everything else, abandoned. I walked out of that apartment with shaking legs. The hallway smelled of dust and mildew. The door clicked shut behind me, and with it, my last illusion of home. On the street, the city moved around me as if I did not exist. Tourists laughed. Music blared. Neon lights flashed. And I drifted through it all like a ghost. I had lost everything. My money, my home, my dignity, her. But the worst part was knowing it was not over. The debt was still there. The men would come back. And next time, they would not just knock. The streets of Pattaya felt different now. They used to glitter with promise. Now every neon light seemed sharp, every shadow heavy. The laughter of tourists rang in my ears like cruel mockery. I carried my single bag from one cheap guest house to another. Each night the walls pressed closer. Each morning I woke with the same question burning in my skull. How much longer can I keep running? The debt collectors were never far. I saw them sometimes, standing at the end of the street, watching me, not moving, not speaking, just watching. My chest would tighten. Sweat would bead on my forehead. I would duck into alleys, into bars, anywhere to escape their gaze. But they always returned, always waiting. The little money I made selling my things disappeared fast. I skipped meals. I drank cheap whiskey instead of eating. The burn in my throat was easier than the hollow in my stomach. One night, I wandered to the beachfront. The sea was black, endless, swallowing the lights of the city. Waves crashed softly against the sand, whispering secrets I did not want to hear. I sat there for hours, staring into the void. The thought came, quiet at first. Maybe it would be easier to let the water take me. I shook it off, but it clung to me like a shadow. The next morning they found me, 3 men again. The same thin smiles, the same cold eyes. This time, they did not stay outside. They stepped into the guest house lobby, their presence filling the space like poison. "You owe," the tallest one said. His English was broken, but the threat was clear. "No pay problem." My mouth was dry. My voice cracked. "I do not have it." She took it all. "Please, give me more time." The second man leaned close. I could smell the sharp tang of tobacco on his breath. He tapped my chest with 2 fingers. Time finish. My knees buckled. The receptionist looked away, pretending not to see. Everyone in that room knew. No one would help me. They left me with a warning. 1 week. 1 final chance. After that, there would be no more words. I stumbled back to my room, my hands shaking so badly I could barely fit the key in the lock. When the door closed, I collapsed onto the bed. My chest heaved. Tears stung my eyes. I thought about calling the embassy. I thought about calling my family back home. But what would I say? That I had wasted everything on a girl half my age? That I had become a beggar in a foreign country? The shame was heavier than the debt. Days passed in a haze. I avoided the streets. I hid in my room, curtains drawn. The air grew thick with sweat and dust. I drank water from the tap until my stomach churned. I felt my body weaken. My hands trembled constantly. My reflection in the mirror looked more like a corpse each day. And still, the memory of her haunted me. Her smile, her touch, her voice whispering promises. They played in my head on repeat like a cruel lullaby. I told myself she must be with someone else now. Another old man, another fool, draining him the way she drained me. The thought made Bao rise in my throat. But worse than anger was envy. Even after all she had done, I envied him, because at least he still had her. The week drew to an end. The knock would come again. This time, I knew they would not leave me standing. I sat on the bed, staring at the door. My heart beat like a drum in my chest. Sweat soaked through my shirt. Every sound in the hallway made me flinch. I knew I had run out of time. The night before the deadline, I could not sleep. I sat on the bed with the lights off, listening to the building creak. Every sound in the hallway made my chest tighten. I stared at the door, waiting for the knock. But it did not come. Not that night. When the sun rose, pale light spilling through the curtains, I felt no relief, only dread, because I knew they were coming. And I knew I had nothing to give. By afternoon, the knock finally came. 3 sharp raps. Slow, measured, final. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. My hands trembled as I reached for the knob. When I opened the door, they were there. 3 men, the same faces, the same cold eyes. No smiles this time. No patience. "Money," the tallest one said. His voice was low, flat, a hammer striking the final nail. "I have nothing," I whispered. My voice cracked. I felt my legs shaking. She took it all. "Please, I am finished. Please." The second man stepped forward, his hand pressed against my chest, pushing me back into the room. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded louder than thunder. The air grew heavy. The fan hummed above, but it did nothing. The walls seemed to close in. I backed away until I hit the wall. My bag sat in the corner, half-packed, worthless. There was nowhere to run. One of them leaned close, his eyes inches from mine. "Debt is debt," he said slowly. "Pay, or pay another way." My breath came in ragged gasps. I felt the world tilt, the blood drain from my face. I could not speak. I could not move. The tallest one reached into his pocket. For a moment, I thought it was a gun, but it was only a folded piece of paper. He pressed it into my hand. "Last chance," he said. 1 week more. Find money, or finish." They left as silently as they had come. The door clicked shut. Their footsteps faded down the hallway. I stood there, shaking, the paper crumpled in my fist. Numbers. An amount larger than I could ever pay. Impossible. Hopeless. I dropped onto the bed, my body trembling, my throat dry. The room spun around me. The fan turned slowly, endlessly, mocking me. I thought of my home country, of the quiet street where I once lived, of my friends who thought I was living the dream. They would never know the truth. I would never tell them. I thought of her, Neri, her smile, her touch, her lies, her betrayal. She had hollowed me out and left me as nothing. And still, some sick part of me longed for her. I hated myself for it. But the longing burned inside me like fire. The sun set outside, the city glowing with neon again. Music drifted in through the window. Laughter, loud and sharp, rose from the street. Life carried on, uncaring. I sat in the dark, staring at the paper in my hand. 1 week, that was all I had. 7 days before the knock would come again. And next time, they would not leave me standing. The room grew colder, though the fan kept turning. A chill crept over me, sinking into my bones. And for the first time, I understood the truth. I was already finished.